Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hot Scum. That's right. You looked for it and you found it. Must be your lucky day. That's right. This is the podcast where we dive into the deepest, darkest, murkiest waters with a plethora of legendary guests. And speaking of legends, I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rexxx Ruger. That's 3 X's, ladies. It's a shirt size, as I've said before, and also a down south size, girls. So, but you might also know me as the man with the golden voice and the velvet tongue. Again, ladies. AKA the king of sleaze, AKA the hair metal high priest, but most importantly, AKA Diamond David Lee Roth Jr., and that DNA testing almost conclusive. Guess what, Diamond Dave? You're going to have a big surprise when you find out that you got a son in upstate New York, and a very talented one, might I add. That's right, I am the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams, got 1 million fans. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop, Bop, Loo, Bop, Wop, Bam, Bam, Shazam. Hot damn. Of course, as always, I was having a heart attack there. Coming to you, as always, from the Pink Pussycat Lounge, a.k.a. the Den of Sin. And a little product placement here. If you, too, are looking at my hair saying, Rexxx, how the fuck do you do it? How do you get those locks that rock? Well, look, let's rewind that. Well, look what just popped up. So my wife said last night. Comedy podcast will be coming soon. Probably not, but let me give myself a look here. See if I can, as of yet, find a bad side. Nope. So, kids, we got ourselves, of course, another good one for you. One that I'm very happy about. Another legendary guest. But in the meantime, let me just tell you that I am the hardest working man in show business. Of course, bringing you the podcast with no frills, because you get to feast your eyes on the thrills. And I happen to be almost 50 years old. I don't know jack shit about this technology crap. But I have added a little extra pizzazz to the show, a little more star quality. Joining me, doing color commentary, will be New York Met legend, Mr. Keith Hernandez, who will occasionally be chiming in on his favorite instrument back there, the bongos. But he probably really won't be saying much because he's trying to save up the pipes to call those Mets games that we all love. But New York Met legend, come on. Number 17 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. Keith, try to keep it quiet back there, which he probably will because obviously he had a very wild Saturday night last night. Got so hammered that today he's absolutely speechless. But that's how Keith rolls. Keith been doing it that way since, back in those Cardinals days, Keith. This is what my life has been reduced to, huh? Delusions of grandeur, maybe. Thinking that I'm this guy's son, talking to puppets. What has my life devolved into, people? But on the bright side, still looking for players for my passion project, my new glam sleaze metal band, Love Sword. So if you're out there, you're a virtuoso, and you want to be the backing band, standing there with the best view in the business, looking at the backside of the second best front man to ever do it, next to Pops back there, well, then hit me up. Serious inquiries only. I do know that that's a popular one. I'm very discombobulated here today. While we wait for our guest to come in here, I feel like I'm running a very unprofessional show here, but well, while we wait for our rock star friend to show up here, and I'm excited about this one, man. We share a lot in common. We're both great front men. We both have amazing set of pipes on us. We're both incredibly, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, incredibly good looking. We're both natives of upstate New York. which usually isn't anything to be proud of, but you know. So while we wait, what else? Let's see. Well, I can give you a little update here on, how my other projects are going. I do still keep getting sucked back into my punk rock band, the Ejaculators, who just don't seem to want to let me leave. Punk rock's not my thing, though. Look at me. I'm not a punk rocker, kids. I mean, come on. Take one look at me. I'm glam. I'm sleaze. But also, I'd like to officially announce on here that one of my other bands, Come on the Rug, has officially disbanded. I know a lot of you guys were really into that first EP that we put out, but unfortunately, we will be a band no longer. So I'm very sorry about that, but what can you do? Conflicting styles, conflicting artistic visions. I mean, what's a guy to do? I is who I is, and that's all that I is. To quote the great American poet Popeye, I am what I am, and that's all that I am. I believe that's what he said. So, here I am once again. Well, enough about me. Here's my guest to relieve you of the pain of having to listen to moi. Let's get him in here. Showing the road there. Hey, there he is. Look at that. I actually get to look at another upstate New Yorker.
That's hilarious.
What's hilarious? The wig?
Upstate New York.
Hey, this is real hair right here, man. I am a chip off the old block. You see, I keep a poster of the old man back here.
I see that.
Yeah. The DNA testing, I was just telling my audience before you came in here, not quite where we would like it to be, but Diamond Dave's got a rude awakening. He's going to find out that he's got a son in upstate New York, or as I like to call it, the asshole and or the armpit of the United States. But I'm sure you know that first and foremost,
I've been to worse places in all my
You probably have. Yeah, I can't disagree that there probably aren't worse places. You're certainly much more well-traveled than I am. But for my audience, Joseph Michael, who is now, I guess you've been at this for a while, but I don't know if congratulations are in order. But, you are officially a full-fledged Sanctuary member, right?
Yeah, for a few years. Yeah, it's been a few years.
Well, it was touring for a while, though, right? I mean, it was just strictly touring, and now it's full-fledged.
No, so after World died, and we did that tribute tour with Iced Earth,
right?
It went so well that Lenny and I just decided we would start writing. So
yeah,
it was. Yeah, I mean, I've been a member since that after that tour. It's just the writing process,
right?
This is a legacy band, so it's not like we can do something new and
right.
And they work old school, so like they all have to be in the room together. It's not kind of like
I like that though. I dig that. That's cool though, man. I don't think a lot of bands have that old school mentality anymore. I could definitely see those Sanctuary guys, from what I've seen of them on YouTube and watching interviews with them. I could see them being those kind of guys though. But you have to have an appreciation for stuff like that though, right? I mean, it's nice when stuff gets handled old school sometimes.
It would have been great if the pandemic hadn't made traveling nearly impossible for those guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt about that. But I mean, before we get to Sanctuary, because I've read up on you and just got so much shit, especially us with the upstate New York thing in common or whatever. But first and foremost, what boggles my mind is 15 years old. You drop out of school, if I read this right, and you start teaching at that age, teaching music.
Yeah, around 15. Nope, there goes the alarm.
That is mind-boggling, though. Like, what do people think when they come in and they say, "Here's your music teacher," and oh, by the way, he's 15.
Self-employed. There was no. I mean, it's Utica. Where was I going to teach?
Right.
Taco's spot over at what is it called? The music place. I think.
Yes.
That's what it was called. No, I was just teaching out of my. I left home at a pretty young age, around 16. So at around 17, like I had my own apartment.
Yeah,
I was teaching out of there and at our like little studio. But yeah, ironically, it was a teacher that told me to drop out because I was I was working, I was in a band, I was doing all sorts of stuff.
That's usually not the type of advice you typically get from a teacher, right? Drop out.
He was a music teacher, and he sang for the Met Opera. He was over at Proctor. I don't know if you know any of those teachers over there at Thomas Proctor.
Jeez, it's been so long. But back at the time that I was in high school, and I think I have a couple years on you. I'll be 50 in January, so I did eventually end up graduating from Proctor, but it was when that whole consolidation shit was going on. They didn't know what they wanted to have be the high school, so it was a year getting bussed over to Kennedy, and then a year when UFA was still open, which is now a nursing home now. So there's not even school there no more. And then ultimately it ended up, being Proctor. But yeah, I really liked UFA the most. But I'm a West Side guy, so I could walk there. I don't know what part of Utica were you living in?
Well, my family's up in North Utica, but like I grew up in West Utica.
Oh yeah. Whereabouts? I'm a City Street guy myself.
That was my paper route. Seriously, for like 4 years.
I was right in that block between Walnut and Capitol, and I always say, it's ironic that, like me and a lot of my friends are as well adjusted as we are. That's actually a pun because a lot of us, partied pretty hard, hit it pretty hard, and we're pretty dysfunctional back in the day. And obviously the telltale sign is the biggest landmark is a psychiatric hospital up the street. So, I mean, that pretty much says it all about the West Side right there. I mean,
yeah, I went to Vernon, and then, I lived on Green and Schuyler near Albies.
Oh, the legendary Albies. Shout out to legendary dive bar Albies, which I do believe is not open anymore.
It's not. Actually, I was talking to Albie for a little bit, like a few years ago.
No kidding.
Yeah, in the Blob. Remember those guys?
Jesus Christ. Do I? I mean, well, you're a couple years younger than me, right? I think I read on your Wikipedia, which of course you must trust because it's the Bible. But what are you born in 1979?
Yeah, that the tail end of that.
Yeah. So at 15 years old though, and if there's personal stuff, by all means, please exclude it if it's anything that I'm treading over that you don't want to talk about. But like, why so much going on? It's your young life though. Like, was home life very chaotic? You're talking about juggling, a job in school and dropping out at a young age and being out in an apartment on your own. I mean, like, what led to all that stuff? That seems like a lot of fast growing up.
Yeah, it's the same like American story. Financial troubles, lead to a lot of stress and
sure,
some things went wrong, and I ended up staying. We had my immediate family ended up in like Barnaville for a little bit.
Okay,
right around like when I was 13 or 14, right when I started playing guitar.
Yeah,
and then some troubles happened, and my godfather had bought my childhood house on Schuyler Street. So when I started having issues at home around 15, I basically it was like go to a group home or go live with your godfather.
Right.
So I ended up there until I was 16, and I was able to get a dishwashing job. And that's when I was doing the job, the school, teaching, playing in a band. And my music teacher, Mr. Popkoff, he's like, you can't do all this. Like, you need to, you have priorities. I can tell. Like, all you do is compose music all day long. Like, you skip classes. I find you in the auditorium playing piano. Like, just do it. You can always go back to school and go to college later or something.
Right. So needless to say, so your musical, your musical path seemed like it was carved out at a pretty young age. Like, you never had designs on doing anything else. Music was the early vision.
No, I was a baseball player for a long time. And,
no, I'm liking you even more and more nowadays. That's what I was gonna do, man. When I was young, pro baseball was gonna be the ticket out of West Utica. I actually remember once, me and my next door neighbor, the Utica Blue Sox were doing something wacky, like almost like they did in that Invincible movie. You know what I mean? Where they held the open tryouts. The Blue Sox were just like letting kids who were like 18 and over just come out of the field and take a stab at it. And we were like halfway to walking over there, crossing the arterial, and we just looked at each other like, well, when we got a load of the kids, we're like, what the fuck are we doing? We've been smoking pot and drinking and not really paying attention to our baseball skills very seriously for a long time. We can't go on the field with these kids. We're going to embarrass ourselves.
Wade Boggs, man.
Yeah.
Strawberry and Gooden.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can see, obviously, I have New York Met great Keith Hernandez sitting in with me, the Keith Hernandez puppet. He doesn't say much. Occasionally, he will chime in on the bongos back there because he's Latin American, so that, they're all about percussion.
You know what I watched last night? It's funny. I was watching Facing Nolan, and they had the Miracle Mets that Nolan and Seaver and like.
Yeah. I got to see him win one World Series in my lifetime in 1986. I was 13, and that was like a huge, huge deal, I remember, because the Mets haven't given us – it's been my team forever, and you know how it is when you're like a New York sports fan. I don't know how much you are into sports, but us New Yorkers take it really seriously, you know what I mean, to the point of you see people shattering TVs and just having total meltdowns, over their teams. I try not to get into it that much. I mean, like where I get obsessive,
I've actually I'm not – I mean, depends on who's in the World Series. I'll root for a New York team, but I was a big fan, Pete Rose and those guys. But my dad was a Red Sox fan, and he used to take me to Yankee Stadium wearing his fucking Red Sox shit, and used me like a 10-year-old boy as a shield.
Yeah. That's hostile territory right there. So at 19, you head out to Los Angeles, and now do you have any groundwork at all, laid out in preparation of your arrival at LA, or are you just flying by the seat of your pants when you go out there?
Well, I had taken the Greyhound a couple times out there just to see, what it's like. And it was, I mean, I'd been to New York, and I lived off and on like in New York City for a 6-month stint, like going back and forth between upstate New York. But like New York is the city, but LA is so different. So I kind of knew like there was plenty of opportunities enough for someone like me who I wasn't even singing at that point. I was just playing guitar and writing songs.
Right.
But yeah, I had traveled a couple times. I'd done some guest vocals and guitar on some EDM artist named DJ Kyoki. Like just randomly, I ended up at a party with him, like on one of the trips. And so I'm like, you know what? Like I can do this. I can go out there. So it took me a couple of years of just, well, honestly, the day that I left was after getting really wasted on Jack Daniels and eating chicken wings with my friend. And we went and got my check and then went on the Greyhound that next morning. We watched the Doors movie. I'm going tomorrow morning. It was like April 17th, 1999. We got there on the 20th or so.
Yeah. Now that you're out in California, do you find, aside from talking about music for a minute, I've asked a couple other, but I haven't talked to too many, particularly upstate New York guys, but New York guys in general. So far on my podcast that I've been able to talk to that have made that move way out there. But now that you're out there, are there things about back home here that you do miss? And, obviously there's things that are native to our area, Riggies, Greens. You hear a lot of people talk about that kind of stuff or whatever. I still will venture down into West Utica for the pierogies at Pulaski's occasionally, but that's about as close as I like to get to. The West Utica that I know and grew up in just seems to be completely vanquished. I don't know where that place went. I just remember, the old people were just very meticulous about their property. And I drive by some of these houses now, and I think these people would roll over in their grave if they could see what their houses have turned into now. But now that you're out there, are there things that you missed? Do you get back here much?
Yeah, all the time. I actually, my aunt just passed away. We were going to go visit her in late October.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I'm always going out there for family. The last time I was out there, my band WITHERFALL, we did a beer that was released at the Philadelphia Decibel Metal Fest.
Yeah.
Metal beer. So we had it was after Prague Power. So I had a couple days off where I didn't need to be in Philadelphia. So we drove up to upstate New York.
Yeah.
Hung out and brought some beer to some friends.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely the seasons. Like not winter. Fuck winter.
Yeah.
It's fun when you're like between the ages of 3 and 8, when you're willing to like burrow a hole into a snowdrift,
right,
and out in there. That's when it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed on that. Yeah. And then from that age to the rest of your life, it ends up being Ode to Despair, no pun intended. But that song seems to be the, that would be a good theme song for people from upstate New York. Ode to Despair.
Absolutely. I made a real hard go at trying to create like a scene in Utica.
Yeah.
Like I was in talks with Mayor Hanna. I was doing events at Hanna Park. And like at that age, like at like 15, like just going there, offering my services.
Sure.
I put on a music festival called the Utica Music Festival over at Utica Films. When I was like 17 or 18. And that, do you remember Rattle Basket?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. They headlined it for us and didn't charge us anything. That it just, it was then a few hundred people there, a lot of kids, but you could never get anyone in the scene to actually do the work that it would take to make something out of it. The only like working professional musicians that I like had seen around were like guys in cover bands, like, cause you could actually make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Like there was a couple guys trying to go for it, like Taurus, but they were way late to that whole thing, and it wasn't going to go anywhere. And the problem I see, and not just in Utica, this isn't a bag on Utica, is these local bands like have that local mentality, and they always work with local producers instead of like
think small. Yeah,
and like I'm like, okay, like the Blob had some cool songs. It was like simple metal, but he could sing. I could fucking sing. But yeah, it was like, okay. I think they did the record at Bob Aquaviva's place.
Yep.
Bob was a good engineer.
Yeah, he's still kicking around, doing his thing.
Yeah, I saw him last time I was in town. And there was like a band in Rochester called Whiskey Gypsy that was pretty good.
Yeah.
They would do like fucking Dream Theater in Kansas and Yes covers. And, Queen. They would do Bohemian Rhapsody without tracks. Like, all guys could sing. That was what got me singing, was that guy Will Schuyler in that band. Like they gave me their cassette. I think I was 14 in Albie's. Albie let me in to watch that band. Like Albie was like my second dad. Like
don't worry, Albie. There's a statute of limitations. You're not in any trouble for admitting that you let this kid in.
He's still alive, man. Like I haven't seen him.
Well, it's funny because I was having a discussion with my wife last night, and we were just happened to be talking about. I told her that she'll ask me who I'm having on or whatever, and I was trying to think specifically. I thought of some athletes, but I was really having a hard time thinking of any people in specifically the music field, that really came out of our area. I think I was wrecking my brain between like you and Joe Bonamassa.
Really? I mean, Jennifer Hudson is from our area.
Really?
American Idol singer. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, Dio. You go back if you want to go back, right?
Yeah. Is Dio a Utica guy? I knew he was a New York guy, but
Ithaca. But
okay.
I have some relation with him. And,
yes, you do.
Yeah, so like some of his family's in the area. But yeah, I mean, you're talking like sports like Van Slyke and Lemke and
I played against Lemke in a pickup game once. Bastard robbed me of a double in the fucking Gap. I'll never forget that. But of course, he did go on to great things and win a World Series, and I just continued to play on a sand lot and think I was better than I was, and drink and smoke and cavort around and think that I was headed to the majors. But so hats off to Lemke. We played up in Yorkville, and Van Slyke was pretty good. We got some older ones. There was Will Smith, who went to Proctor. He ended up playing for the New Orleans Saints. He won a Super Bowl.
Oh, really?
Yep. I mean, this is long after I was graduated from high school, but and I can think of some actors, but not really specifically from Utica. But like my wife was telling me Tom Cruise is from Syracuse, and I think Dick Clark was from Syracuse, and there's people from this area, but Utica specific, very, very hard to find anybody that made it very noteworthy. Joe Bonamassa obviously has done extremely well in the field or the genre that he plays in.
Yeah. yeah, I used to hang out with Joe and, well, it's more actually Joe's dad when he had Bank Plates Guitars.
Yeah.
With Tom Schultz.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was our fun time. I used to basically hang out in that store all day, like just playing up. Yeah.
But fast forwarding to Sanctuary, though, I'm wondering, like you, and I don't want to skip over things because I think the Midnight Rain stuff is great. Love Witherfall. I mean, everything that you've done and put your voice to has been great. But specifically Sanctuary, I'm wondering, after the passing of Worrell, is there any kind of, because you mentioned at the top of the interview them being like a legacy band, a band that's really persevered over time, is there pressure when you step into and take the place of a guy like that? And do you put any pressure on yourself?
No, I mean, it was weird. It was a bittersweet thing when I got the call to do that gig. I mean, my guitar player Jake in Witherfall was playing in Iced Earth, and Sanctuary had that tour book opening for Iced Earth, and that's how that all came about. And the funny thing is that, I mean, I guess it's not funny, it's dark. Jake and I were sitting up one night writing for what would be the Prelude to Sorrow record that has Ode to Despair on it. And it was December. It was like a couple months before that tour was supposed to start. And that's when we heard like some news, some chatter from Brazil that Worrell had passed. And Jake's like, oh shit, like who the hell's gonna take the place to what band are they gonna get to take Sanctuary's place? Because Worrell's dead, right?
Right.
We were messaging with our label in Germany, and like nobody, I mean, I don't want to say nobody could believe that Worrell had died, but it's still shocking and sad news. But fast forward a few weeks after that, and they had a couple bands that were supposed to step in, but they had some accidents. Some friends, I'm not going to name names, but and when those bands fell through, I guess John Schaefer called up Lenny, the guitar player for Saint, and was like, Lenny, is there anybody like maybe you could get, and like you could do like a tribute tour, like any singers you could get? And there was like a few names, a few of the usual suspects like that they were thinking about. You can imagine. I don't know why they wouldn't do it or couldn't do it, so I don't want to like name them, but for whatever reason it didn't work. And then just offhand, Schaefer called up Jake like, hey, like Joseph could hit all those crazy high notes like Worrell, like you think he'd be into doing it? And that's when they put me in touch with Lenny, and we decided to go ahead as like a tribute.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty great honor. Like, and I always I told Schaefer and Lenny this story when we decided to go forward with it. When I was I don't know, like 16, me and my guitar player friend, it's a kid named Dan Jaco. I mean, he's not a kid anymore, but we used to run through the mall singing shit like Sangertown, like just singing Maiden at the top of our lungs, Skid Row, whatever. And we would go into this music store. It's not there anymore, but this is like mid 90s. And there was this guy, this random college kid working there that used to pass us like bootleg metal tapes, like of whole albums.
Nice.
Every time we go in there, we'd be like, we're like the metal kids. We had King Diamond shirts on.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
So he took a liking to us, and one of the tapes that he gave us had Nevermore, like on one side.
Right.
On the other side was Iced Earth's Dark Saga. And so like getting like that call to open for Iced Earth doing a tribute to Worrell Dane was
crazy.
Like 20 years of work later.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Talk about full circle.
Exactly.
That's wild, man.
Chilling. I'm like, man, I worked a lot, a long fucking time for this. And
I know. And then you're saying 20 years. It makes me feel old, just the fact that you're in a record store and something's actually still talking about records. Now they just seem like glorified toy stores. We've got one in there in Sangertown now, in FYE, but it seems like the music section, and particularly the metal section, just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I mean, it's a lot of dolls and Japanese anime toys and novelty shit. You know, it's more like a Toys R Us than a music store. You know, it's sad, really.
Well, you got the two stores up there on the hill, Music and More, and what's the other one? The vinyl store. It's where Ravenswood.
Oh yeah, over near Big Apple there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I do miss though the fact that like you know, I certainly miss being able to go in and find stuff like from like you know, people's back catalog. Like it seems to be, you know, very prevalent that when you go into these stores now, you can't find, unless you're a legendary act, like you might be able to find all of Metallica's catalog. But if you're looking for like, let's say like Iced Earth, you know, if they put out an album, you know, there'd be one or two copies of the latest, but then you'd never find anything in the back catalog. You know what I mean? They don't stock any of that shit anymore, you know, like.
No, everything's online for that. Like,
everything's online. Yeah, it's pretty. So who sits you down? So do you get in a room with like Dave and Lenny, and like, do they actually like, you know, is there ever like a formal, like, you know, I mean, hey, like, you know, welcome to sit, you know, I mean, you're in the band now. I mean, is there any, because you say they do things old school. So I didn't know if there's, you know, what the process is like when you get the gig.
If you knew Lenny, you'd be laughing. This. So no, the first time I met, well, okay. So when they released Year the Sun Died, I actually had Lenny in Las Vegas. We were at one of the Sanctuary shows for that, and we bought them all beers. And there's weird areas of this story that I don't want to get into in public.
It's all right. That's all right.
But, so like he kind of remembered me because I mean there was no one at that show. Like there was nobody there. It was insane. But yeah, like Worrell was trying to give us shirts for free, and Lenny was yelling at him. But so when Worrell died, they were having the like his celebration of life up there in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I had heard, you know, like we had I went up there. Like I wanted to go and, you know, give my respects and meet everyone.
Right.
And not just be like, you know, like a faceless email person.
Right.
That,
right.
You know, see if like we actually get along. So we drank a shit ton of the hell out of Corona with lemon. He won't drink it with lemon.
Bonding over alcohol. Yep.
Yeah. So we talked. You know, I went and did some demos of some of the old school stuff, like Battle Angels, and then that, like we had a face to face, but there was no like, there was no time. So like, I think that tour started in late February, and we're already pushing like New Year's when they finally made the decision was like right after New Year's, like
right.
So I had like 6 weeks to memorize all those lyrics and learn all those songs, because I mean, like I'm a Sanctuary fan, but I didn't. It's not like, you know, like if I got a gig singing like Guns N' Roses or Metallica tomorrow, I could probably have 10 songs ready to go because those songs are around the radio. They're great.
You know every word to Appetite for Destruction already, like the rest of the world. You know,
Sanctuary. It's like I got a bunch of songs in my playlist, but like I couldn't sing through the like All of Refuge Denied without work. So it was like 6 weeks of going to Sanctuary College at home.
Yeah, right.
You know? So yeah, there was, I think we didn't get in a rehearsal room until like maybe 10 days before like we were supposed to leave for the tour.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of close. Yeah. Well, yeah. I saw an interview, and I think it's dated a couple of years back that I was watching with you on YouTube the other day. And I don't know if you still stand by this or not, but I think the interviewer asked you something about like influences or bands or something like that. But you said that you're more of a song guy, right? You don't necessarily dwell on these bands and like, you know, I'm a rabid fan of this band, you know what I mean? So you got more of an ear for the music, like songs stick out to you more than the aesthetic of the band.
Yeah. Concept. I mean, yeah, there's absolutely stuff I love, like I love Typo Negative. I love King
Yeah.
Diamond. I love that dark style that also has like song. It's song based, right?
Yeah. Melody, great vocals. Yeah.
And you know, everything has its own, like I love Pantera, like, but that's a different thing. Obviously I like a lot of rock, but yeah, I care way more about songs than bands. I'm not one of those guys that's gonna sit there and defend a shitty song just because it's a band I like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And oddly enough, you bring up King Diamond. Pretty cool though that there's going to be some Merciful Fate gigs in North America.
You know, I missed his performance. I'm out here. I bought a house in Vegas last year, so
Okay.
even though the WITHERFALL is based in LA, like we're all over the place.
Yeah.
My studio is here in Vegas. Jake's over in Florida. But yeah, like I missed Merciful Fate at the Psycho Fest.
Yeah.
Pissed off about that. We were supposed to tour with Moonspell, and that just threw a wrench in everything.
Yeah, pretty crazy. I know a lot of people are salivating over this Merciful Fate, you know, and it seems like a pretty great bill because there's a lot of great thrash bands out there, and unfortunately, one of the ones that doesn't seem to get a lot of credit here in the States is a Creator. You know what I mean? So they're actually on that tour too, which really makes it an outstanding bill. But
Yeah.
So I want to ask about Worrell's style though, because he was notoriously known for what seems like, and I'm not a trained vocalist, so you could probably elaborate on this more, but obviously you're able to certainly pull off that early stuff because it's very, very reminiscent of the kind of voice that you had, but his voice did seem to kind of take a change, and he's saying in more of a lower register. Where do you stand on that though? Like doing the stuff later in Worrell's career, are you going to try to make any changes to your own voice, or are you just going to sing the way you sing?
I'll always just sing what I want. I have a chameleon type voice. Like I do 1,000 different voices, but like this is a touchy subject with a lot of Worrell fans because
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But the later change was damage. Like, and every time I say that, people go, "Oh, you can't say that." And I'm like, but I'm just being honest. Like,
right.
Yeah, he started to lose all of his range in the later Nevermore stuff, even though. Like my favorite Nevermore record is Godless Endeavor, which was much later.
Yeah.
And he'd already had started to lose some of it, but like Worrell was a unique artist, unique vocalist, so he was able to sell it with his personality and writing.
Yes. Yeah.
Even where it was lacking in some of the technical side of it, some of the health issues.
Yep.
But yeah, like like the last two records, I mean, his last real record was that Sanctuary, Year the Sun Died.
Yeah.
And I know a little bit about the insides of that production, but like, he still had that one thing that he could carry with him, like that lower mid thing that he still had in strength for a good octave. So
yeah,
the record worked because he still like it's still him. He can still sell it.
Right.
Like all the high notes are gone. Like a lot of the different tones are gone. It's just that one like tortured bellicose thing. His solo record, I mean, he was literally like in the process of dying when that happened. So
yeah.
They threw that together like
to
save money for the label, because
sure. Yeah.
All the money advanced for that would have been.
Yeah.
They didn't find a way to put that out.
Well, the missing ingredient in all this, and I don't want to say missing ingredient because I don't want to do a disservice to any of the current Sanctuary members, but will we ever see, and I know he's had some health problems of his own, will we ever see Jim Shepard back in the fold again?
I mean, that's not for me to say, but I wouldn't. It's highly unlikely.
Unlikely. Okay.
He had, he still has health problems. He did come up, and him and Loomis came up on stage with us in Seattle for a couple songs. That was kind of cool.
Really? That is cool. That is cool. Because, it always seems like, and And Sanctuary doesn't seem to be, unless I didn't pay attention when I was doing my internet research, but Sanctuary, for a band that's been around so long, has not been one of those bands, it seems like, that's been plagued by like a litany of personnel changes. Usually a band that's been around since 85, you will literally see on their Wikipedia page that laundry list of past members that can get quite extensive with bands in a 30-plus year career.
Well, the thing is that after Mirror Black, they had some issues. They had some personal infighting, and you know, this is a Lenny interview, but he he'd love to talk to you. But
I'm working on Lenny. I'll get Lenny.
Yeah. The thing is that they all like, they were having issues because of, you know, the label, and it was the 90s coming up, and they were fighting over the direction of the band, and when they broke up, like all the way up until like 2 years before Year the Sun died, like they didn't do anything.
Right.
So Worrell and Jeff went off and started Nevermore, and I think Lenny had a couple projects, and then I guess Nevermore broke up, and Lenny and Worrell were back in contact with each other, and
yeah. Well, another thing in that same interview that I'm talking about, where you had mentioned about not really paying so much attention, you know, to everything that the band does as opposed to being struck by songs that you like, you also said something pretty poignant, and I get how you meant it, and I also could get where some people could almost make the criticism that, like, you know, that there could be a hint of arrogancy, but I knew not to take it that way. But you had said something about, I again, with the influences, you know, your vocal style, and you say you try not to really pay attention to what a lot of other lead singers are doing and try to form your own style. I think that's such a great thing, and I don't know why there's such a sense of arrogancy. I mean, yeah, you know, I think there's a fine line between, like, you know, I mean, arrogancy and carrying yourself with some swagger, you know what I mean? Like, you belong up on that stage. You know, I don't think you have to say, geez, I have to look like and sound just like these guys, you know what I mean? Because they're my musical heroes necessarily. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I think that's a great statement, you know, and I think inherently, I think we all do subconsciously take little pieces and parts of everything that we're exposed to. So I'm sure people have certainly shaped the performer that you are, but do you still stand by that kind of a comment, though, that you try not to be influenced heavily by other performers?
Well, I don't try. I'm just not.
Right.
The thing is, when people like fans or whoever watch these types of interviews, it's not a conversation, so they can't ask you follow up. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, they just
right.
Like, they like you or they don't. And if they don't
right.
like you, they're gonna say, you know, it might even just not like you. It just might hit them the wrong way. Because they're not. They probably, you know, they don't have any frame of reference for this type of art. Yeah. So when it comes to influences, like, of course, like I became the singer that I am by taking in, like, say, like singers like Sebastian Bach or Worrell or Steven Tyler or Axl, and like going, I really like that sound. How do I make that sound? And then, like, that's how you learn. Like, at least that's how you're supposed to learn. A lot of these vocal teachers are so full of shit that it's real. Like, you figure out how to make that sound without, you know, making it over and over again in a way that's not going to fucking the health of your voice. But I would do that, like say, like a Geoff Tate. Like, I never went and tried to mimic Geoff Tate. I love what Geoff Tate does, but and then he's gonna make fun of me. He's like, it's Jeff. And I'm like, okay, it's not spelled like Jeff. But so Geoff Tate.
Jeff is not with a G, damn it.
Yeah, or an E-O. Like, what the fuck?
I'm with you, buddy, on that one. You're right. Yeah.
But there are certain things that you go, I really love that sound. How do I get that thing he does?
Sure.
And then figure it out. And then, because it's now in your tool, like, it's something that's naturally coming out of your you know, like when you write a song, when you write a melody to a certain line, you already know, like, based on the conglomeration of all of the things that you've you've worked on over the years.
Right.
And yeah, it comes out, oh, like that, he did that thing and it kind of reminded me of so and so. That might be true, but there's no like I'm not sitting here writing in my studio going, this is the Bon Jovi line and this is the Worldane like chorus. No, like it's the music comes first, and then you figure out, well, how do I deliver the emotional content of this exact piece? And I get that. I'm kind of akin to like a Jonathan Davis or a King Diamond, where I don't let all my stuff sit in a box. Like if a vocal line pops out that needs like something that doesn't seem to fit the song, I don't care. I'm going to deliver it like it's a fucking Broadway tune. Like it's going to be emotionally relevant. It's going to sound like it's supposed to, like that onomatopoeia type thing. It has to be delivered with the correct emotional intent, even if it doesn't fit the genre or the, you know, like, oh, like this song now isn't consistent in its sound. Fuck that. I don't care. Like I'm trying to deliver a story and an emotional impact. I don't care that now it doesn't sound like Testament because it's not the whole time, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, you know,
that, like, I mean, but I'm not trying to fit into a mold. Like I'm not trying to create a stylistic interpretation of anything. Like,
yeah,
I don't care.
I'm glad you said Testament too, because it just got me really excited because, you know, as I hit 50 years old, I sometimes forget stuff that's on my itinerary. But Tuesday, I'm going to the big Bay Area Strikes Back show.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
pumped. Death Angel, Exodus, and Testament. Yeah.
Is
It's down in Albany. It's down in Albany, which used to be Northern Lights, and then it was Upstate Concert Hall. Now I believe it's Empire Live. These places go through so many you know, name changes, and the Lost Horizon used to be the Lost Horizon, and then it was, you know, Club Tundra, and then it was 32 Degrees, and thankfully it's back where it should be, and it's the Lost Horizon again, the lovable dive bar that caters to the metal population that it should be.
Yep.
But one thing that I like about what you said about the performers, though, like for instance, like one of my favorite frontmen, I don't have him up here for any reason or claim to be his son for any reason. I would love to be his son. I mean, David Lee Roth, one of the great frontmen. He's one of those guys that just is never going to admit that anybody made him who he is. You know what I mean? He's the frontman. And he also isn't going to back down and say that anybody's a better frontman than him, you know? And I don't think that's necessarily, I think, like I said before, I think there's a difference between arrogancy and just having some flat out swagger. Why can't you have that, you know?
You know what, Dave? The thing about Dave is he's always honest and he is correct. There is no other David Lee Roth. Like,
right.
When they get into these Sammy, Dave, you know, like who's better, like nonsense, it's like, it's not even about that. Like, it's not like Sammy is obviously a great singer and has techniques that Dave just doesn't have. But I mean, honestly, like, and you know me, I'm a technician. Like I know all this stuff.
Right.
I'd rather hear Dave deliver a song. Like it's just
yeah. I would too.
And he does some great work. But if you're gonna give me the binary choice,
it's not much of one for me either. Yeah, you're right. So I want to ask. I asked you about you know, as we talked about Sanctuary being a legacy band. What do you think, though, with being around for so long, what is Sanctuary's legacy? Because, you know, and it's sad that you mentioned earlier about, you know, when Worrell was still with us, you know, that show that you were hanging with them and there was nobody in attendance, which is absolutely heartbreaking for a band of Sanctuary's magnitude. But in the pantheon of all these bands that have had this longevity, where does Sanctuary fit?
You know, like I really didn't know because, you know, like I'll go to shows and it's a band I don't know and the place will be packed and I'm just at a loss. Like what?
Right.
Like where is this world that you know?
I know.
And then you'll go to a show where you expect it to be sold out.
I know.
There's nobody there and you're like, wow, like, you know, a lot of things, especially in the modern world, don't translate.
I know.
You know, like kids can never tell.
Right.
I mean, especially in Europe, I mean, Sanctuary does really well. They get really great festival offers. I mean, we did Alcatraz a few years back. That was like what, 7,000 people.
Yeah. And do you think any of it has to do with, you know, you see these bands that are, and I certainly don't want to call Sanctuary, you just, you know, I hate all these genres and subgenres. I've talked about on episodes here before where everything's got to be put into a box, especially in the metal community. Everything is divided into these, you know, deathcore and melodic deathcore and blackened death metal. Everything's got to fit neatly into a box. But, you know, so, you know, at the behest of calling them just a thrash band, which I don't want to do, but you do see thrash bands, you know, like an Overkill or like the aforementioned Testament that just have their foot to the pedal and their 17, 18 albums, like Overkill, almost 20 albums into their career, no let up from the guys, lots of material every 2 years, you know, you're going to get an Overkill album. Do you think it's just a lack of a catalog and like a lack of activity that maybe Sanctuary just didn't keep up catalog wise with some of their peers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they got kind of burned by their label, and I think if they were getting along better, they could have, you know, I don't know what their contract looked like, but they had, I mean, Refuge Denied's a gold record.
A masterpiece. Yeah.
They have a gold record, and Mirror didn't do quite as well, and I think that's what happened is that once they dropped off status with Mirror, like the label was like, all right, well, this whole kind of metal is over. And you know, because that was probably the last big King Diamond record was like The Eye, I think, and yeah, around that time when it was all that sort of thing. They weren't investing any money into it anymore, like right. They were, you know, the bull market's over for right. Dark maniacal heavy metal. Well,
there was also a rough period for metal in the 90s when obviously the whole grunge thing kind of just swallowed up the whole world. But you know what? And that brings me to an interesting point. With Sanctuary being a Seattle-based band, the Sanctuary, you know, what Sanctuary's, I don't know if you know or not, what's Sanctuary's legacy around their own area?
Oh, yeah. Like everyone knows Sanctuary in Seattle.
Okay, that's good.
All those guys hung out together. I'm pretty sure, and Lenny would give you more insight into this, that those guys were hanging out with Alice in Chains, and they know the guys in Queensryche. And,
yeah, cool.
I would actually think Sanctuary, I don't think of them as a thrash band. They remind me more of like the early Queensryche, but like on acid.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just twisted. Like it's it's like Rage for Order, but they took a bunch of speed and acid.
Yeah. Almost like a raw, like power prog type of metal. Yeah.
A little.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to label that. I certainly don't want to do them a disservice. Not that I don't love my thrash bands, but they are a very difficult band to kind of pigeonhole. You know what I mean? Like they do have a very, very unique sound because while it is very heavy, it's also very melodic. You know, they've always been very well known for, you know, fantastic vocals, which, you know, you obviously are carrying that tradition on very well. When Worrell passes away, and you hear that news, I mean, you know, and as you said, he had some health problems. He was kind of, you know, run down and you know, maybe taking a little bit of a downside. But do you remember where you were at that moment?
Yeah, I was writing with Jake. It was about 5 a.m. and we had just stopped writing for the night.
Yeah,
we were out drinking some wine and finishing up some songs. Actually, I wonder, it might have been the song "The Long Walk Home," which we were doing for the bonus track. No, we were writing. I definitely know we were writing, and we were hanging out on his couch, finishing our probably 10th bottle of fucking red wine. And like I saw a Facebook post from some of those Brazilian guys that were in Worrell's band.
Yeah.
And then it was all over Blabbermouth, and then it's 5 a.m. So the label over in Germany, those guys, our A&R dude, Philip Schultz was up. So I hit him up and I'm like, did you hear anything about this? And yeah, he's like, yeah, unfortunately it's true. Yeah. So the thing was, I had hotel rooms for a couple of the dates because I'd never met John Schaefer, and like I said, he was, you know, like growing up, like, yeah, definitely an influence on me. Like the way that he built that whole empire of Iced Earth from the ground up is you know, something to be admired. And
sure,
I loved a few of those records. So when Jake joined the band, I'm like, fuck you. And then you guys are going out with Sanctuary. That's going to be fun. I want to go and hang with you guys. And so I was already going to a couple of those shows anyway.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to get your take, because you do have such a unique sounding voice, and you are, known to be such a technically gifted singer. I kind of want your take, and this is very topical, obviously, specifically right now. And I imagine by the time I get your episode up, it will still be topical. But where do you feel, or what's your opinion on these, these artists that get, very far into their career, and they start using what a lot of people perceive as, cheating. You're seeing like the guys on the stadium tour, specifically Vince Neil or a Paul Stanley, these guys that are getting kind of, beaten down for using backing vocals or these little tricks to enhance the show. Are you in favor of that kind of stuff? Do you think these legends deserve a pass, or do you like to hear the authentic, real live article?
I mean, as far as what I like, I mean, I want to hear the performance.
Yeah.
But to be fair, like these guys they're getting unfairly beaten down when there are bands almost like Witherfall doesn't play to tracks, Sanctuary doesn't play to tracks. Like when Witherfall first started, we couldn't afford to hire someone to play guitar and keyboard, and it's really difficult for me to get up there with a guitar or keyboard for some of these things. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
And so like we had some background vocals flown in and some keyboards here and there, like the first like couple of festival dates we played. But then we went with a keyboard player who could sing, and so since then, we don't have any tracks. There might be a sample, like all the voices talking and shit. But
But in fairness, when you mention Worrell's abilities kind of declining because of his of health or lifestyle or whatever, you also have to think that these are guys 40, 50 years into their career who can really replicate what they did that many years ago.
they can. And here's my point was, a lot of the younger bands are all on tracks. Like I'm not going to name names, but there's a 90% probability if you name a band, they're going to be having tracks. It's just, like there's a skill in hiding that.
Right.
The more scripted and laid out the performance, the less room for error there's going to be. And a lot of these guys treat it like it's a Vegas show, and every word, everything is exactly the same every night. And that's, I mean, I'll probably get shit for this, but that's just ridiculous. Like this is supposed to be, at least for me, it's supposed to be a rock show. Like I don't want to see Jennifer Lopez with their, the dance troupe and everything is lip synced. And what's the difference? Like what are we going for? Because you can go and see the Metallica movie where they're on stage in a big movie theater with a great sound system and see the same thing.
Right. Sure. That's a good analogy. Yeah.
Bands like Kiss, for instance, Paul's fucking up there rapping and saying shit and fucking dancing around. And like, so when he gets caught, with some of this stuff, it's just because a lot of it is still off the cuff, not totally scripted. So it's a lot harder for bands that have that type of show. Right. So yeah, like these guys get unfairly, hit with it because they're not totally like committed to it. Right. Oh, dude, like a lot of these bands, like you're barely hearing any of the actual vocal like going through, and it's all piped through, and they're all wearing in-ears to a click. Yeah. Now, honestly,
do you think young bands are doing this? And this is just a theory. Do you think young bands would be pulling these kind of stunts because of the importance of live shows now, to bands' careers? Talking to a lot of musicians on here, obviously that's become like the bread and butter, with obviously, album sales not what they were. And, back in our era when you went out and bought albums and people could actually find commercial success and not have to take a day job and actually be a musician. Are bands more worried about, God, we got to make the live shows so good because people have to fucking come because this is where we're going to make our money?
Well, a lot of bands aren't making any money.
And they're cheating, and it still isn't getting them anywhere.
What it is, it's the same thing as the loudness wars in the recordings. Like, if you're like, say, like Witherfall is up there, and everything's organic and live, and
Right.
like, and then like a band, I don't know, like one of those symphonic metal bands,
Yeah.
shows up and it's a CD.
Right.
Who's gonna sound, quote unquote, sound better to
Right.
the person that doesn't? They're not looking at the guitar player. They're not listening to the drummer. They're just listening to the product.
Sure.
Like, you're not gonna compete, you know.
Right.
So it's like a war of like, oh, like, I'm gonna give the audience this CD quality live performance, and it's
Right.
like, it's not the same thing.
Right.
That's really why they do it.
Right.
And I think that because of the phones, that there's a anxiety in a lot of bands. They don't want a bad performance or an out of tune vocal showing up on
Right.
you.
Oh God, yeah, that's the end of your career right there. God forbid somebody puts up a bad performance on YouTube.
What it is, people read comments and they shouldn't, like, because, you know, like, you've probably been to hundreds of concerts. I've been to hundreds of concerts.
Yeah.
And they, like, you go see Aerosmith, and Steven Tyler's like flat on a lot of notes, but who gives a shit? Like, you had a great time.
Right.
Now like a million people watching on YouTube, and all they do is shit about you. Like, so,
Right. Right.
you know, if it weren't for that, nobody would care.
Right.
You know, because it's about being in the moment and hearing, like, you know, the song being performed.
Right.
You know, like, to you right there in the room, not, oh, like, you know, it's recorded, like, you know, like 7 weeks ago, and it audience tuned, and it's perfectly compressed, and
Right.
yeah, that, I think the phones have a lot to do with it.
But it also seems to be unfair, though, you know, as I mentioned earlier, though, to expect Steven Tyler to hit the high notes in a song like "Dream On," the way he did back in, in the late '70s, early '80s, though. That's just not fair. I mean, you know, I can't get up and down my stairs as fast as I could when I was 25 years old. I feel every ache and pain.
Steven Tyler is still outshining most of the 20-year-old.
Agreed. Yeah.
He's still. And dude, he's 70. Like,
yeah, that's pretty crazy. So, so now you specifically as a performer, though, you know, obviously the throat is an instrument in and of itself. Do you do anything specific to enhance or to take care of your throat? Are you one of those guys? You know, you hear guys with all kinds of little tricks of the trade, gargling with honey, or drinking tea, or doing warm-up exercises. Do you do anything? Do you have a routine, a pre-show, or anything that keeps your voice in tip-top shape?
Yeah, but it's not any of that. That's all nonsense. And,
it is. Okay, that's all bullshit then, huh?
And sugar down your throat, you're hurting your voice right there. So whether it's honey,
I mean, hey, I listen, man. If you're saying it, if you're teaching people how to sing and do music at fucking 15 years old, Jesus Christ. I mean, if you don't know, nobody knows. So no sugar.
No sugar.
That's bad. Okay.
You know what? I don't warm up before the show. What I do is the sets usually ease in to the
bigger tunes.
Well, or, like, a lot of people think like say like a song like Battle Angels is the most difficult, but it's not.
Right.
That's that I have that technique down so well that it doesn't take much effort to hit those notes. So it's a lot of the big belting, like, chest voice stuff is much harder, like, on your voice when you first start singing, when you first open your mouth. So I like to make the set list in a way that I'm warming up within the first few songs, and the show just gets, better and better. I think especially as you get into being like a touring musician or someone that, like, does a lot of studio work and you're singing hours and hours a day.
Right.
Warming up is really, it's like, how long, what car is going to last longer? Like a car that before you get on the road, you drive it 50 miles.
Right.
Or the car that you just take care of and you drive it wherever it's going.
Sure.
And then you stop.
Right.
Well, my students, what I tell them is your voice is going to be two things. It's going to be how much do you understand in your brain? how much do you work on specific things that are giving you trouble, and how well do you take care of your body? You hydrated, you sleep well.
Yeah.
And, like for me, like it's wind sprints, like high intensity, sprinting, like
Really?
3 times a week. And then, like I'll play baseball or basketball almost every day for an hour, and I weights 3 times a week.
And now when you say wind sprints, like what do you mean? Like you just go outside of like wherever you are and you just mark off a distance and you just boom and boom down and back and just.
Yeah, like I'm talking like 90% maximum effort for 10 to 15 seconds 6 times.
Jesus Christ, I need a nap just saying the word wind sprint.
Yeah. Yeah, like where you can't move your legs when you stop.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like
well, I'm on my feet most of the day because my day job, I take the hair off and I leave it at home, and I'm actually a nurse by day. So being in healthcare, you're certainly on your feet a lot in these healthcare facilities. I mean, so there's no shortage of movement. I've never put a pedometer on me or seen, but I am curious. We haven't built into our phone, so I should check someday. But you certainly do log a lot of steps probably throughout the course of a typical workday.
Good. That's definitely good. You'll feel it when you're less active.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
You step off that.
Yeah, no question about that. Well, I would probably get in a lot of trouble if I didn't ask, on behalf of my audience here. It's been since, I believe, 2014. So when will we see a recorded Sanctuary album with you on vocals?
Well, I'm guessing, and I may be wrong, but we should be in the studio sometime before our next festival date at Keep It True. So probably late 2023 or early 2024. I'm guessing.
Awesome.
That's when
awesome.
You see it.
And of course, we just got a WITHERFALL album in 2021, correct? So
yeah, and then we're actually recording another record and EP early next year. So,
and I got to say that I love the acoustic one. I mean, I think that's some of the most beautiful work. I mean, just gorgeous. I've been hearing "Ode to Despair" acoustic.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, look, this is the Upstate New York theme song right here. I mean,
the percussionist on that was Earth, Wind, and Fire's percussionist. He also did Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson. Yeah, it's dude Timbali. He makes his own instruments and
wow.
All that weird shit you hear in the background.
You know what? I'm glad you brought up making your own instruments. I was just at the amphitheater in Syracuse earlier this week, and I saw Megadeth. And I'll tell you what, before them was that Mongolian band. I wish they weren't called the fucking Who, though. I hate that part. But those guys really do something different. They're up there stringing these weird instruments, and apparently it's something that the men in their culture are taught very early on. And it's some kind of deep, like, I don't know if you've heard them or not, some kind of deep, like guttural, like throat singing technique.
Yeah.
It's extremely interesting, fascinating shit. But I'll tell you what, and being on a bill with Dave Mustaine, I mean, especially since everyone is lifting him up because, he's a throat cancer survivor. And subsequently, he did sound extremely great. But it's very hard to upstage like a legend. But I'd have to say there were 4 bands on the bill, including Five Finger Death Punch. But I mean, this Who band really stole the show, though. I mean, they're really doing something really. I love when somebody is attempting to do something that's different and bringing a cultural aspect to it too. It's very interesting shit. I mean,
they've been around.
I've never seen anything like it. It's crazy. I mean, it's the Who, but it's HU. So I mean, it's
the omelet.
Yeah. But so are you one of these kind of guys who likes to be involved in a lot of musical projects, or are you and spread yourself a little bit thin, or do you like to just kind of put your focus? Obviously, you've got multiple bands, but how busy do you like to stay? I mean, you got the studio in the background there. You're doing stuff with WITHERFALL, you're doing stuff with Sanctuary. I mean, are you kind of somebody that just likes to have his plate full a lot?
My plate's always full because only the music side, but the business side, I have a, I'm fully involved in the marketing side. I'm involved in,
I mean, does the business side just make you want to pull your fucking hair out these days? So the music business drastically different than from what you and I remember from back in the day.
You know, it's it's strange. Like, it's very strange. Like, everything is the music business right now is based on useful leeches. Like, the companies that get involved, like, they're they can be, they're all parasitic, but some of them are, what's the term? Some of them are useful, some of them are not.
Right.
Like, it's really bad. Like, you don't really get much, like, being on a label anymore.
No, I've heard that. Yeah, I have been hearing that from a lot of musicians on here, that the assistance that you do get is very limited.
No, it's really shameful how much the industry's fallen off. And I get that the pie is much smaller.
Right.
The whole streaming thing. Yeah. I don't know, man.
How does a musician make money nowadays, though? I mean, I read some ridiculous thing, and I'm paraphrasing at best here, but we're like, something ridiculous, 20 or 30,000 streams, like, it's a band, like, dog shit money. You know what I mean? Like, how do you divvy that up? I mean, what how do you, because obviously the formula back in the day, it used to be, you're signed to a label, you put out the album with the big power ballad and then the rock song, and you go out on the big tour and you fuck all the groupies and do all the cocaine in the world, then you come back and rinse and repeat and do it all over again, and the world was fantastic. I mean, how do you make a cent nowadays?
Well, listen, like, the whole internet thing has totally changed. So, like, if you can, especially, like, people hate when you say this, but if you're a woman who has some talent,
yeah,
like, the world's your oyster online, because, I mean, you can just put your stuff up on YouTube and use your image, and I'll probably get flack, but I don't care. It's just,
I know. I can just see the comment section now. This sexist bastard.
It's like, and if whatever, like, if you're,
I get what you're saying totally. Yeah, a lot of it is image.
You'll get 100,000 views on a video just because you have a female singer, and
yeah, you've got nice tits in them. Yeah,
and use that. And if you don't have a label, I forgot who I was watching, but there was a female artist that was talking about some shit she went through with a label, and like, she would make a ton of money, having her YouTube channel and her Patreon linked, and just, she'd put out covers, and then people would just subscribe to her to get access to the covers, and that was working really well for her. Then she signed to a label, and she's like, I owed the label $400 after a month. And it's like, I was making really good money doing it myself. And
yeah,
and if you can, whatever it is that you do that gets you an audience, like, what, hot chick, like, you were like on a TV show, or
right,
whatever it is, like, if you can do it yourself, and you're smart with that sort of thing, and you understand, like, sales funnels, you can make a hell of a lot of money. And the thing with Spotify is not the fucking culprit, man. Like, the biggest drag on the music industry is YouTube. Like,
yeah,
most people go and they put on their laptop or their smart TV, they go to YouTube and they stream their music from there, and it takes like 50 streams to equal one Spotify stream.
Jesus.
Yeah. So everyone's blaming Spotify. I'm like, yeah, it could be better for the artist, but there's this big elephant that you're not talking about, because all of y'all like to go and listen to it on there.
Sure.
Spotify, it's just how many hands are in the cookie jar, right? So if it's just you're the songwriter, you're the publisher, you're the label, a million streams on Spotify ain't that bad. Like,
hell no.
You can recoup the $20K that it costs to record a record.
Right.
That. Totally.
Yeah.
But if you get $5K from an indie label to put out your metal record that barely covers the cost of a decent production, barely.
Right.
Like, and now you've got, maybe you're sharing publishing with the label, and then the mechanicals are all screwed up. You'll never find them.
Right.
And they're taking 50% at least of the Spotify streaming revenue, right? Yeah. Now what do you got?
Right.
You got $5K. You probably spent more.
Right.
Pocket. and you still owe the label that $5K back because
Right.
you're paying on your whatever your royalty rate is. That's what you're getting paid.
Right.
To pay that $5K.
Right. You're essentially starting out in a hole, and then, you know, you're getting up to the surface a little bit, but then you're redigging yourself almost right back down again. So you're kind of always kind of in that same place almost.
It's like owing back taxes. So when you have to pay back taxes, you're not paying, like, you go make $10, you don't get to pay $10 back to that back taxes.
Right.
Because you're paying taxes on that.
Right. Yeah.
You're only paying, like, if say like you get a 20% royalty, you sell a CD at $20, that's only $4 going back to pay the label back.
Right.
That's $20. They keep the.
Well, what's your opinion on? And I'm always intrigued by, you know, asking artists this. You know, all that being said about the business, and I know there's really probably no right or wrong answer. I don't know how an old school a group of guys like in Sanctuary do it. Me being an old school guy, I love seeing a nice, good old school LP. But is there a right or wrong way on these music platforms now? I'm hearing a lot of bands like saying, geez, the attention span of the public is shit now, so it's got to keep hitting them with singles. Keep your name out there. Some people are doing the EP route. Some people are still doing full-length albums. Is there a right or wrong answer nowadays?
Yeah, there is, and it's like a hybrid, and that's what we did on our last record.
Okay.
So you have the record. You know, we always do double vinyl, full gatefold, like, you know, posters.
Yeah.
And I mean, we commission a fucking painter from Sweden. Album covers, right? You know,
our generation loves that shit, though. I mean,
so does, dude. The kids are no different. It's just you got to make it convenient for them,
right?
You know, like you have to figure out a way to get all that information in front of them, and that's what it's hard on like Spotify, because you know it just pops up. They don't know what it is. Well, so what you do is you release all those singles in advance of the physical product, one by one, so that you trigger those algorithms over and over and over again.
Okay.
And because if you release the record at the same time, people that buy the record aren't going to stream it. Now you just all of that streaming revenue, and all the, you know, like all the action comes from everyone using it, so it snowballs.
Right.
So you know, if you think that you can do, like, if you think that people are going to buy your record and then go and stream it to help you, it's not going to work. You got to limit access. You have to limit access to you got to kind of, it's kind of like you know, like a store, like the Apple store. It's set up in a way to lead you where they want you to go. Right? Like it's like we're going to make the easiest path.
Yeah.
Direction we want people to see things.
So the product we want you to end up with. Yeah, right.
When like you want to like have a product be seen first that has like an ancillary product that's seen later that they can add to make this product better. You know, you want to put them in reverse order.
Right.
So would you give people access to a CD first when you want them to stream it and get more of that online activity rolling?
Right.
Or more chatter online. Nobody's listening to a record in their den, right? You put on the record, like, you know, even young kids still have record players, but when they do that, they're not like, oh yeah, I'm listening to track one of, you know, on Facebook or on Instagram. It's separate. It's a separate thing. So you got you got to figure out how to get both.
Now, with Sanctuary being an old school band, who takes care of all that shit in the band? Who's like the business guy in the band? Is that Lenny?
Yeah, Lenny is the head honcho over there.
And he likes dealing with that shit, or just by de facto, he's like the senior member. He just gets stuck with that job.
I think Lenny, by de facto, got that job because he was in a band with Jim and Worrell. I don't think he particularly enjoys.
You got the short straw.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you though, and especially since there's going to be very shortly here, and from what I hear, it's fantastic. A great new documentary about Dio. You mentioned at the top of the interview that you have a connection with him, you know, a family connection with him. First of all, did you ever have any interaction with him at all?
Once.
And what, were you a child?
No, like he was already like massively famous. So like there were some photos like on my grandpa and my aunt's wall, like
Okay.
you know, from afar. And I always hear stories. The I put out a cover for Midnight Rain of Heaven and Hell, and this is like maybe a couple years before he died. And we were advertising in like Metal Edge and Metal Midnight, and all that stuff. And I got a fucking email from Wendy. And she's like, you didn't ask Ronnie's permission to like cover the song. And I'm like, you don't have to. It's not, that's not how the law works. But it was kind of like the label was saying like, that I'm his cousin in like the marketing. And so I guess
tying it all in. Yeah.
It could have been handled like a little bit better. Like, but they probably wouldn't have even answered the emails, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like, would you have even responded? Like,
I know. Right. Yeah. Right to the junk pile. Yeah.
I could hear Ronnie in the background going, who's he saying he is? Who's he related to? I got on the phone and I told him a little bit, like, some of the history my aunt had told me. And he's like, oh, that's possible. Okay. Hey, just don't use my name, like, unless, like we give you permission anymore. And that was the last I talked to him.
Yeah. Because it's just mind blowing, man. Because I tell you, 95% of the vocalists I talk to on here, he's always cited as an influence. So I mean, obviously he made a very indelible mark on the music business. Small guy, huge voice. I mean, it's pretty crazy. But like when you look back at his music, though, like what do you think of him and his wide array of work? Rainbow, his solo stuff. I mean, he did numerous projects. Are you a fan?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the first times Jake from Witherfall and I bonded was talking about our favorite Dio moments, and we both have the same exact vocal delivery moment that's our favorite, and that's that ending of Caught in the Middle.
Yeah.
That's just like one of the most pure head voice, like mixed voice things I've ever heard. Like, I mean, pretty crazy. And especially it's astonishing when you look at the size of him. A very diminutive guy too, with that big, powerful voice. I mean, that's crazy. People totally misconstrue how the voice works. Why isn't the soundboard of an acoustic guitar, why isn't it a thick piece of oak?
Right.
It's thin because it needs to resonate.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, it doesn't really matter like how big someone is. There are guys that are skinny as fuck that have really deep voices. It's really what's going on inside here, like how long the vocal cords are. Like that's what dictates,
right,
movements going on, and how like if you were a vocal student of mine, to unlock some of that resonance, like you want to be very relaxed, right? Yeah. And there's times to stiffen certain, to give support, right? And it's not really support. It's almost like a mental support that you use your body to gain.
Right.
Like if you're singing and you want to check whether like you're resonating, it's like you would hold something like light in your hand, like a empty soda can or something.
Right.
And if when you're singing, you can make that resonate, then like you're on the right track.
Yeah.
You're not just tensing up and trying to force air out and get big sound. Is that you're actually creating sympathetic resonances, like along your chest or your head or the mask or whatever. Like you can feel it happening. So a lot of people comment on his size.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up hydration and sleeping and, like getting into some good habits. So as a vocal instructor, how do you explain some of these anomalies? Like it was pretty amazing to me back in 2013. And I'm not saying he's the best singer, but my wife and I went out to Buffalo to see Pearl Jam. Eddie Vedder, obviously a guy, who people consider a good singer. But the whole concert, he's pounding up on stage bottles of red wine and he's smoking cigarettes. Or you see a guy like Lane Staley, who people say, oh, this big, this powerful, haunting voice. But the guy was obviously had his crosses to bear, drug addiction. I'm sure he wasn't a guy getting a healthy night's sleep every night, you know what I mean? Or staying hydrated necessarily. How do you explain these guys? How do they use their instrument in such a powerful way, but they're not going through the steps to maintain that instrument?
I'll tell you what, like, if you go online right now, you will not find a concert where I'm not drinking on stage.
And how do you explain that, though? How do you guys get away with doing that? What's the fucking secret? I want to be a great front man, buddy. How do I do it? No, well, I don't really want to be a great front man, but if I did.
What was it? I think it's
drink more and smoke more?
No, I don't know about the smoke.
Kids don't do that.
What is it? I don't know if it's a military saying, but you train the way that you're going to perform the duty, right? So
okay, that makes sense. Okay,
like if you're going to be out there drinking, like you have drinks when you sing, like it's age old thing.
Right.
I mean, Pavarotti back there, red wine.
Right. Sure.
In fact, like if you're talking about Dio, he didn't warm up because what he understood. And, all these fucking vocal teachers are stealing money from kids, showing them all these warm-ups.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're doing. There is physiological things that they're trying to encourage when in these warm-ups. There is basis for it.
Right.
But nothing that can't be accomplished just singing.
Right.
So that's just shit that they can do to bill hours. It's like legally. Why is legal jargon so ridiculous? It's because they can make money because no one understands.
Right.
So Dio is like, if you have to warm up, have it. And the point of that is the work that gets you the results is already done before you step onto the stage.
Right.
Like Lane Staley, he obviously wrecked his body with drugs, but at some point, all that he put in all that work to give.
He'd done the groundwork. Yeah.
Fucking monstrous voice.
Yeah.
And singing for all those hours, even without say like, my regimen or whatever, still is massive amounts of cardio. Like,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the work is done before. Like Axl smokes, like, they're all drinking and doing drugs, but they still put in all the work.
Right. So
they have been better, maybe.
Right.
But I mean, you can't argue with it's like
yeah.
It's like a Tom Kiefer. It's like, yeah, he hurt his voice. Like there was some improper technique and there was some proper technique, but it's like when you're doing CPR on someone, you're gonna break some ribs. There's no proper technique for that.
Right.
That's to cause damage, and it's like like when Slash is playing a solo and he's bending the neck
right
to get a certain sound. There's no safe way to get that sound. There's no safe way to storm into a building in Iraq and fucking clear a house.
Right.
Like to get that sound of Tom Kiefer, like it's not gonna last. But
right.
Brian Johnson, it's gonna cause damage. Like
yeah.
Like people, that's what's happening to Axl is like they fall into this trap of these fucking idiot vocal coaches. Oh, you can scream but you just use the technique like a baby. That's all nonsense.
Yeah.
Like get the sound that you want that sold all those millions of records and caused millions of kids to want to sing like you.
Right.
It's not a safe thing.
Right. Right. That makes sense.
The appeal.
Right.
It sounds like that because it's causing a little damage.
Right, sure.
It's this nonsense where they're like, oh, you can do it in a safe way. No, you fucking can't. Because every time they show you how to do it in a safe way, it doesn't sound the same.
No, you're right about that. No, yeah, you're right. I know they got these kids warming up doing like a do re mi fa, and you need to do this. I see James Hetfield now. After he had vocal cord surgery, and now he's a big proponent of the warm up exercises. And apparently, I saw in the documentary film that they did, he's got like a cassette that he warms up with. That this guy told him, here's some sounds and enunciations that you should make to warm your voice. I guess it's whatever works for you, because I guess the mind's obviously a powerful thing. So if your head's telling you that it's working for you, I guess it's working for you. But
7%, like the best benefit of those things is it's an emotional
right
that you can latch onto to take your mind off the fact that you might step onto that stage in a half an hour and your voice might not work and you might crack and it's mortifying, like absolutely mortifying. It's the worst feeling in the world when you've done like 7 shows in a row.
Yes.
You wake up and you can barely talk, and you're like,
I know.
In 7 hours.
That's correct. Yeah. Listen, man, it's been a blast sitting here talking to you. I could do this all fucking day with you, man. I feel like I found a kindred spirit here. Another Utican, another baseball player, another fantastic front man. Okay, maybe I'm not that part, but I have a poster of a fantastic front man. We talked baseball. We've had Keith Hernandez fucking sit in and play absolutely zero bongos back there. But this has seriously been a blast, though, man.
Dave Magadan.
Dave Magadan. Oh, yeah. Dave Magadan tried to take Keith's job at one point, I think, didn't he? There's only one first baseman in my mind, and it's Keith. You know what I mean? And Keith is a perfect example of one of those guys who could do a lot of blow and still play a great first base. I mean, I think cocaine certainly has its place in baseball. I mean, if they don't want people to do cocaine, the whole game shouldn't be predicated on long white lines. I mean, that's not good. You don't want to put coke heads out there with a third base line and a first base line. I mean, the first thing they're going to do is, who knows, roll up a $1 bill, and then there goes the batter's box.
See, now that should be a South Park episode where all of the strawberries got a big ass straw.
I know, in Gooden, all those guys, I know they had their careers wrecked, man. I think some of it was just getting unleashed on New York City, and they're young and they're being touted as the saviors of the Mets, and they're handing them all these millions of dollars and turning them loose on the city like that. I mean, you're destined for failure. I think you got into the right field. Fuck baseball, I guess. Too much pressure.
If your name's Strawberry and you're like making millions of dollars and you're famous, like you're bound to like get into trouble.
Oh yeah, it's so hard not to. And then, like I said, all those trappings of of all cities to be playing in. You're under a microscope in New York City. And I remember when they brought those guys up from the farm system. These guys are going to be the saviors. They're finally going to take the Mets out of the fucking cellar and restore us to glory.
They could have.
They could have. They certainly could have. The potential was certainly there, man. And unfortunately, it's like a lot of the old tragic story of a sad ending or whatever. But at least in 2023, 2024, as you say, we'll have a nice happy ending because we'll be getting a Sanctuary record. So that's good news. You said a mouthful. That'll make a lot of fans happy right there. And, you just spent an hour and a half on here with a guy that thinks he's David Lee Roth's son. So kudos to you, my friend. I mean, that's saying something right there, that you have no life, that you could come on here on a Sunday. Go do some work. Why don't you, Joseph Michael? Go write an album, will you?
Really gonna do that.
No, seriously, man, it's been a blast talking to you. I hope you'll stay in touch, man. We'll definitely get up sometime when you're up here, and if nothing else, we'll certainly, if you're kind enough, I'll have you on again sometime. And I just love to sit here and pick your brain and talk shit all day.
Cool. Yeah,
it was a blast, man. It was an absolute blast and a pleasure, man. It really was.
Definitely, you should hit up Lenny next and get
I'm working on Lenny. Don't worry. You should see my Facebook Messenger. I'm kind of just grassrooting this whole thing. I just started doing this a couple of months ago, but I don't always have the biggest A-list guys. Like, am I going to have Axl Rose on tomorrow? No, but it's cool talking to guys in Flotsam and Jetsam, or guys like you in Sanctuary. Because I find them interesting. You know what I mean? A lot of it is having conversations with people you find interesting, rather than like forcing it. Like, oh, geez, let me have some pop star on here that I know people will tune in and give me views for. But then what the fuck am I going to talk to about? You know what I mean? Like,
it's tough when you're trying to build a channel.
It is tough. It's tough. Yeah, it is very hard. But plus now everybody and their brother's a fucking podcaster. So, I put on the wig and try to have a little bit of shtick, but just try to stand out. And I'm certainly getting people that I interview that certainly are gonna, remember, the fact that they talk to a buffoon like me, which is nice and gratifying, of course. That I make a mark with people. But I'm actually going down to the Bay Area Strikes Back show And the drummer for Death Angel was actually kind enough to put me on the list. So because I'm going to be interviewing him in person that day. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which is very cool. You know, I mean, it does afford some nice luxuries. Some people have been kind enough to send me some merch, or put me on a list of concerts and stuff. And I'm certainly not doing this because I'm looking for any of that stuff. But it certainly is a nice little fringe benefit. You asked for my address and were kind enough to say I'll ship you out some shirts or whatever. That's always great and always cool. But I just like having interesting conversations with folks. And if it's for 30 minutes or it's like us an hour and a fucking half, then so be it. I don't filter it or edit it or. I've lost people in the middle of the calls and they've reconnected with the link again. And I just keep the fucking thing running. I'm 50 years old. I don't know shit about technology. I don't have an intro theme song. I don't have no animation. I don't know how to do any of that shit. So I just get on here and I just kick it with the guests, try to let them, there's always somebody out there that wants to hear somebody. So I figure like, even if 100 people tune in and they say, geez, I love that conversation. I got a lot out of it that I feel like, I'll sit around and watch long format conversations like Rob Flynn from Machine Head is doing one, and I absolutely love it. He just gets all these dudes that he's known from back in the day and bands like Forbidden and Testament and all these Bay Area guys and just bands that he loves. And I can literally just sit there and just like listen to them talk about the old days. And I wasn't even there, but it's just interesting to me,
Yeah.
I find it fucking fascinating. But listen, man, I really enjoyed this though, man. And I really appreciate it, man. And you being so generous with your time, man. It's been a real honor to talk to you, man. I appreciate it.
A lot of fun.
Keep an eye out
for that package and let me know when it shows up.
Will do, sir. Will do. And of course, I appreciate it, man. And we'll definitely stay in touch, man. And when you get back into Utica, man, we'll I don't know.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
We'll shoot the shit over some riggies.
Oh, I'm a Cavallo's Greens guy.
There you go. Yeah, Greens. Perfect. Yeah. Well, it was good talking to you, buddy. I really appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, bud.
All right, man. Talk
Joseph
soon.
Michael, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Later. There he goes, folks. The great Joseph Michael, the vocalist for Sanctuary, the vocalist for Witherfall, the guy you need in your life. So go check out everything that fucking guy does. And he also wrote the theme song to being a native upstate New York citizen in Ode to Despair, because that about sums it up. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. That was the great Joseph Michael, as I said, vocalist for Sanctuary, legendary band Sanctuary, and Witherfall. And go check out everything he does, man. Give that guy some props. Give him some love. Put some respect on that man's name, as the kids say nowadays. And as always, remember, take it easy and keep it sleazy.